السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. اللهم لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك ولعظيم سلطانك، لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. اللهم لك الحمد حتى ترضى، ولك الحمد إذا رضيت، ولك الحمد من بعد رضا. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. اللهم ارزقنا الإخلاص في القول والعمل. I apologize. I've kind of lost a little bit of my voice, so it sounds a little strange. But we're going to try to get through it, inshallah. Hopefully it'll strengthen as we go. I'm going to read, inshallah, from where we stopped in Surah Al-Haqqah. I have a cat who wants me to feed him first. We're gonna start, inshallah, from ayah number. I'm gonna read from ayah number 12. بإذن الله. أعوذ بالله من أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لنجعلها لكم تذكرة وتعيها أذن واعية، فإذا نفخ في الصور نفخة واحدة وحملت الأرض والجبال فدكتا دكة واحدة فيومئذ وقعت الواقعة وانشقت السماء فهي يومئذ واهية والملك على أرجائها ويحمل عرش ربك فوقهم يومئذ ثمانية يومئذ تعرضون لا تخفى منكم خافية فأما من أوتي كتابه بيمينه فيقول هاؤم اقرءوا كتابيه إني ظننت أني ملاق حسابيه فهو في عيشة راضية في جنة عالية قطوفها دانية كلوا واشربوا هنيئا بما أسلفتم في الأيام الخالية وأما من أوتي كتابه بشماله فيقول يا ليتني لم أوت كتابيه ولم أدر ما حسابيه يا ليتها كانت القاضية ما أغنى عني ماليه هلك عني سلطانيه خذوه فغلوه ثم الجحيم صلوه ثم في سلسلة ذرعها 70 ذراعا فاسلكوه إنه كان لا يؤمن بالله العظيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين. Read the translation now, inshallah. 1 second, please. Okay. Bismillah. From ayah 12. To make the incident an advice for you, so that remembering ears may remember. When the trumpet will be blown once, and the earth and the mountains will be lifted and smashed to bits all at once. On that day, that will take place, which is to take place. The sky will be split and become absolutely weak that day, with the angels at its ends. That day, 8 angels shall carry the throne of your Rabb above them. On that day, you will all be presented, and nothing of yours shall remain hidden. As for the one who receives his record in his right hand, he will call out, "Come and read my record." I was always convinced that I shall certainly meet my reckoning. So he will enjoy a pleasing life in the lofty Jannah. Its fruit are near at hand. Eat and drink with all blessings as a reward for the deeds that you sent ahead during the days gone by. As for the one who receives his record in the left hand, he will cry, "Oh dear, if only I were not given my record, and I had not known my reckoning. Alas, if only death had been my end. My wealth has not helped me. My kingship has been lost to me." Grab him and place a yoke around his neck. Then enter him into the blaze. Then fasten him in a chain 70 cubits in length. Verily, he did not believe in Allah the Majestic, and he did not encourage the feeding of the poor. Okay, that's what we're going to try to get up to if my voice holds up, inshallah. Welcome to everyone. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah to all those who said salam, and assalamu alaikum to all those who are with us. Alhamdulillah, we are continuing with Surah Al-Haqqah. And we talked about last week introducing the surah, really the potency, the power of the surah. Another Makki surah with a very heavy focus on the Day of Judgment. In fact, really this is the entirety of this surah is any scenes and the reality of the Day of Judgment. And the consequences of those who rejected in this world before the next. So part of their judgment as well, right? And we talked about, the way that the surah introduces and starts out with a very, captivating any tone and wording. And we had gotten to the point where Allah is reminding us about the previous nations, and again their experiences, their judgment, and kind of giving us in ayah number 12 the the purpose of mentioning those things, right? لِنَجْعَلَهَا, that particular incident of Nuh and the ship and the flood, but in general also, right? That these are tadhkira, that these are advices and reminders for us. وَتَعِيَهَا أُذُنُ وَاعِيَةٌ, and that it reaches an ear that is wa'iyah, that is aware, that is awake, that is seeking that guidance and that direction, right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, basically for pretty much the rest of the surah, or a large part of the surah here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing the Day of Judgment, right? The introduction to the Day of Judgment, and then the happenings of the Day of Judgment as well, right? فَإِذَا نُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ نَفْخَةٌ وَاحِدَةٌ. When the trumpet or the sur will be blown, one blowing, right? So a few things here. Number one is it's not even mentioned who's doing the blowing, right? It's not mentioned who's doing the blowing. Why? Because that's not what's being emphasized here, right? So sometimes this verb form, which is يعني الماضي مبني للمجهول, it's giving us the verb form that the blowing happened or will happen, but not telling us who. And we know from other narrations in the Sunnah and stuff that it's Israfil who will blow, right? But here again, it's not mentioned because that may take away from the actual point itself, which is that this is going to happen, and when it happens, that's going to be the basically the destruction of this world and the beginning of, like, it's the onset of Qiyamah, right? And that's why when we say al-sur, the trumpet, what exactly does this trumpet look like? What is this? And we translate it as trumpet. Does it look like a trumpet? Obviously, this is all from ilm al-ghayb, from the knowledge of the unseen, right? So not to get stuck in details or on details that are not mentioned for a reason, meaning that aren't necessary or important, right? Here Allah mentions nafkhatun wahida, one blowing of the horn, right? But we know, of course, and again from other ayat in the Quran and from some of the narrations, that there's actually going to be 2 or 3 blowings of the horn. So why is it only mentioning one here, right? Is it saying this is only one and other places saying 2? No, right? We know that, again, there are 2, according to some scholars, and 3 according to others. Like the first, for those who say 3, the first is that which is going to cause terror. The second is going to basically knock everyone out, kill everyone. The third will be the revival or the resurrection. Those who say 2, they say these first 2 are the same. Al-Faza' and Al-Sa'qa are the same. Okay? And then the third, or the second, is فَإِذَا نُفِخَ فِيهِ أُخْرَى فَإِذَا هُمْ قِيَامٌ يَنْظُرُونَ, is that they're going to be standing in attention, right? But so again, why does Allah mention one here? Why does He mention one? Because the point is that for this one that's being mentioned, only one blowing is needed for it to have its intended effect, which is to basically, either, knock everyone out, kill everyone, or bring everyone back. You don't need more than one, right? It's not, you don't need a redo. You don't need an extra one, to ensure that all those who are supposed to die died, or all those who are supposed to wake up. No, one is enough to establish the intended effect, to signal the arrival of the Day of Judgment, right? It's not like someone didn't hear it, someone wasn't around. No, one time, right? And this is something that would strike fear, of course, right? I always mention this when I hear this ayah here, or ayahs about the blowing of the trumpet, right? When there's these sounds that you don't know what where it's coming from, or what it signifies, or what the source is, it can be very, very terrifying, right? On now we're used to it, but on the first Tuesday of every month, for some reason I haven't been hearing it. Maybe I haven't been outside at that time, but the first Tuesday of every month, you have the tornado warning system, right? And it's, even when it's just a test, and it can be something that is, scary, right? And imagine if you don't know and you think it's real. I mean, it can be terrifying, right? So these, may Allah protect us, but to hear this trumpets being blown, right, it can be a very terrifying thing, and it will be for those who are not given safety by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Then Allah says, so now you're seeing, and once the trumpet is blown and the arrival of the day of judgment is happening, وَحُمِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ وَالْجِبَالُ, that the earth and the mountains will be held or lifted, فَدُكَّتَا دَكَّةً وَاحِدًا, and they will be smashed, one smash, all at once, right? And again, this is, again, it shows one smashing is enough to basically destroy everything, right? The not just the earth and its different topographies and all these things, but the mountains, right? Imagine these mountains, and subhanAllah, again, this is not something you can really appreciate fully unless you've seen mountains, right? And I know that's not what I mean. You've seen mountains. A lot of people have seen mountains on TV or, no, I mean, like, you're actually around mountains. We don't have mountains here. Being in places where you can engage with these ayat of Allah, these signs of Allah, it makes these ayat that we read in the Quran more impactful, right? Because we know mountains, okay, I've seen a mountain, on a computer screen or a TV, right? It's big, it's nice, it's majestic. But to actually be there, I remember visiting a national park once, and I didn't really know what to expect, because I never really engaged with the mountains like that. But I remember driving in, and there's like some clearing, there's like trees, and then you kind of pass them, and then you see this massive mountain. And I remember that my reaction was just that my jaw just dropped. Like, it was literally speechless, right? Because it's different to actually see it in person. And subhanAllah, the mountains are absolutely majestic and magnificent and awe-inspiring, right? And so imagine now you see that, and then you hear this ayah, right? That the mountains will be raised and destroyed. And Allah Azza wa Jal tells us elsewhere in the Quran, يوم تكون الجبال كالعهن المنفوش وتكون الجبال كالعهن المنفوش, that mountains will be like scattered wool. These mountains that are the representation of stability and strength and power will be like just air particles. Right? So here, similar thing. الدك here is ضربة القوية الهائلة. Right? I don't know if anyone's seen like something get smashed by like a hammer, where it doesn't just break the thing, but it completely almost like vaporizes it, like it shatters it, right? Like if you've seen those, used to watch these videos of like, you have the pressure press, right? It's like just high pressure. And so whatever is there, it just, obviously gets, what's gets put in the press, it's completely destroyed, right? Completely destroyed. And so imagine, something getting hit, right? Dakkatan wahid, Allah is saying, just one hit that does this to the earth and the mountains, and that flattens it out, right? Because one from the meanings of deck as well is not the deck that you have outside, although it's interesting because the deck is flat, but it means to flatten out, right? And so this فدكت دكة واحدة, right? That can you imagine this scene, the overwhelming power of seeing something like this, right? فيومئذ وقعت الواقعة. It's as if like when you see that, that's the day that وقعت الواقعة. We took this phrase in Surah Al-Waqi'ah. إذا وقعت الواقعة, when the inevitable falls or happens or occurs, right? Yani when stuff like this is happening, that's when the qiyamah, um, the inevitable is going to take place, right? That will take place, which is to take place, right? So it goes from a wa'd, it goes from a promise, it goes from words that we're reading, right? Like this is a promise of Allah that this is going to happen. But there's a difference between hearing a promise, seeing it, right? Seeing it written or hearing about it, and then it actually turning into reality that is observed and that is felt and that is heard, right? And so the warning here is to allow us to protect ourselves from the reality, because the reality is terrifying beyond imagination. And the only way that something terrifying beyond imagination can be protected from, like a person can protect themselves from that, is that they're prepared for it, right? Usually they say, when you're surprised by something, the surprise can be even worse than the actual thing itself, right? Like it's unexpected. It can be worse than the thing itself. Like when if your parent says, "Wait till we get home," right? The anticipation of it and what that's going to be can be worse than the actual punishment itself, right? But here, the surprise of experiencing the the punishment and then this horrifying scene is worse, and not worse, but it's adding to the horror of the entire thing. So the only way to be protected from it is to be prepared for it and to be protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Then Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَانشَقَّتِ السَّمَاء. So not just the earth and the mountains and that which we see around us, but then above us as well is being destroyed and going through this splitting. وَانشَقَّتِ السَّمَاء. The sky will be split. فَهِيَ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَاهِيَةٌ. And it will be واهية. واهية يعني ضعيفة, weak, right? Like we see and we took in Surah Al-Mulk, right? Just 2 surahs before. Look at the sky around you. Do you see any futur? Do you see any, cracks, any schisms, any breaks? No, right? It's just, it's perfect in its composition, right? In its construction. Now here, on the day of judgment, that perfection and the celestial bodies above us as well, فهي وانشقت السماء, that the sky, that will all split, right? And part of the splitting is, of course, it being destroyed and preparing for the akhirah, but also because al-malaku ala arjaiha, right? That the angels will be coming down and the angels will be descending, and so you're getting a complete also change in the skies above as well, in the sky above as well. وَالْمَلَكُ عَلَى so when we say it's weak, that means it's unable to remain constructed, unable to remain stable, right? You can imagine, just it's just falling apart, right? وَالْمَلَكُ عَلَى أَرْجَائِهَا, right? That the angels are in the heavens, of course, right? They're in the skies above us. And so now they're not only are they coming down, but the angels here, Malak here is ism jins, right? It's singular, but it's referring to all the angels here, right? Or the angels as a species or as a whole. على أرجائها يعني أطراف. أطراف is like the edges or the sides, right? On the edges or or the sides, the ends. Why? Because of course, the collapsing of the sky, the angels are now on the edges, on the ends, right? They said that could be atraf, right? The edges of the sky itself, or they said على أرجائها يعني أرجاء الأرض, that they come down to the earth and they're on the edges of the earth, right? ويحمل عرش ربك فوقهم يومئذ ثمانية, and they hold, right, carry the throne of your Rabb, right, above them, of course. فوقهم يعني above all. يومئذ ثمانية, on that day, 8 of them. On that day, 8 of them, right? والملك على أرجائها ويحمل عرش ربك فوقهم يومئذ ثمانية. Right? So there's these angels also who their job, their duty is to carry the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And this is obviously symbolic of ultimate control and ultimate power, right? The throne of the King of Kings, right? And when we say here 8 angels, some, and of course they took it at face value, right? Some they said 8, and Hassan al-Basri, for example, he says, I don't know, is it 8 or 8,000, or is it 8 lines of angels, right? Or whatever Allah wills. And he said, Allah knows best. And meaning that, is it just 8, or is it indicative of a larger number? And we take it at face value and say 8, right? But of course, who are these 8, right? Only Allah knows how they are. It comes in a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, I was given permission to speak about the carriers of the throne. Just one of them, he says, بين عاتقه وشحمة أذنه مسيرة 700 عام. Between his shoulder and his earlobe is the journey of 700 years. And here, even 700 years, what's the journey of 700 years, right? Okay, to even imagine what that distance is. But even they said, even 700 years here, what type of 700 years? Is it 700 years journey of the angels, 700 years with Allah? What exactly? Meaning it's something that is beyond imagination, right? And it's just mentioned to us to allow us to just be recognize how much we're unable to even imagine it, right? It's similar to like when we hear about like the size of the universe or the distances, when you hear in astronomy, the distances between galaxies and the light years, right? We talk about light years. It's beyond even something that we can comprehend. Say light years is this many thousands miles per second. And can you even imagine what that actually means, right? And so, this is something just to kind of really boggle our minds, but to make us recognize how amazing this is, especially in the context of the Day of Judgment in the Akhirah, right? And then, of course, so these angels that are coming, we hear elsewhere in the Quran, that also the angels, they're going to be dragging Jahannam, and they're going to be, coming with these different roles and these different things that they're doing on the Day of Judgment to kind of set the stage, right? And of course, Allah Azza wa Jal has no need. That goes without saying, right? But just to emphasize that point, that Allah Azza wa Jal, that these angels are the servants of Allah Azza wa Jalla, and it shows His magnificence by comparison as well, right? That the one who's in control of these angels, who are beyond what we can imagine in terms of size and power and ability, that if that's the angel, and there's a number of them beyond, again, what we can even imagine, right? Like, for example, just the angels who carry Jahannam. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that it's being carried by 70,000 ropes. At each rope is 70,000 angels, right? I mean, just that amount is something beyond what we can imagine. But it shows us by comparison Allah Azza wa Jall's power as well. Allah Azza wa Jall's power as well. Right? يومئذ تعرضون لا تخفى منكم خافية. Right? On that day, تعرضون, you will all be presented. Right? لا تخفى منكم خافية. Nothing of yours shall remain hidden. This is subhanAllah. This is very, like, it's as if in the entirety of what had happened in the universe, right? All of these things that we're seeing, the blowing of the trumpets and the destruction of the earth and the mountains being flattened out and the skies being split and the angels coming and carrying the throne of Allah, the human being and the jinn, of course, are what is intended by all of this. يومئذ تعرضون, that you will be presented on that day. Al-ard, they call a ma'rad is like an exhibition. Like when they say, like, for example, ma'rad al-kutub, right? Like the book fair. Why? Because that's the place where all the books that are being sold are being presented, right? Being put on display. Right? So a ma'rad is an exhibition. You're exhibiting something, right? And so here, who's being exhibited? Who's being presented? Who's being put on display? Tu'radun, you will be. The human being and the jinn, those who are coming to be judged. لا تخفى منكم خافية. Nothing of yours shall remain hidden, right? Nothing of yours shall remain hidden. First of all, you're not going, meaning no one's going to get away from this, right? You're going to be presented. No one's going to be absent. No one's going to have a rain check. No one's going to no show, right? And everything that you did will also be presented. Nothing will be hidden. لا تخفى منكم خافية. No action, no word, no plot, no plan, no, feeling, nothing. It's all going to be brought out, right? لا تخفى منكم خافية. What was made hidden, or what was hidden in this world, will be made known. No conspiracy, no plot, no secret, no plan. All of it is going to be brought out into the light. This is part of the justice of that day, right? Maybe the things that were never exposed and never figured out and never understood now will be made clear and made open, and people will see it and will realize it. And at the height and the most important of those is the actions of the human being, your actions, right? That you thought that no one was looking, right? That you thought that that you got away with it. No one saw, no one figured it out, right? No. لا تخفى منكم خافية. And so as a result of that, there's going to be levels, and there's going to be different realities for people, right? And how they're going to, and you say here, respond. فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ. Right? So some, they will be given their book that has all of their actions and all of their deeds written. Right? So it's not just that it's going to be verbally out there, but it's actually going to be written, documented. Something's documented, that's it. Right? There's no getting away from it. There's no talking your way out of it, right? It's going to be made, established and clear. فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ فَيَقُولُ هَاؤُمُ اقْرَءُوا كِتَابِيَهْ. Whoever is given their book in their right hand, right, they will say, هَاؤُمُ اقْرَءُوا كِتَابِيَهْ. They will say, come. Ha here is to emphasize that tanbih, to call attention to. Hey, come here, read my book, right? So we know the people of righteousness are going to have their book in their right hand. And this is part of al-ard as well, right? Al-ard here for the believers, the questioning for the believers is that they are given their actions and made to see them, and it's a light kind of questioning. It's not a heavy investigation into why did you do this? Why were you here this day? Because when that happens to someone, that means they're going to be judged by the justice of Allah, and they're going to be punished. Anyone who's judged by the justice and not the mercy of Allah is going to be punished, right? Because we all are guilty. Right? So he says here that this person is going to be given their book in their right hand, and they know, right? They know when they're given their book in their right hand. This shows this is a believer. This is someone who was told this, and who knows this, right? And so you imagine these books are coming flying, and the person it comes to their right hand. Oh, why don't I just catch it with my right hand? No, it doesn't work like that. It'll come to the right hand of the person, and they will say, "Ha umqra'u kitabiyya." Right? They're going to be so happy. This reminds me of, like when not even a child, but just when a person, but generally you see it with children, right? When you get your report card, right? And it has the grades in it that you want. What does the child do? What do we used to do? You go home and you say, look at, right? You're proud, and you bring it out and you say, look at my report card. Look at what I did. Right? Ha umuqra'u kitabiya. Read it. Right? You're sharing, and you're involving others in your happiness. And it's as if, like when the child does that, it's as if everyone's waiting for that, right? Like everyone was waiting to see and to read that, because you're so, overjoyed and just, like excited, right? Ha umuqra'u kitabiya. Here, read my record. Come and read my book, right? Inni dhanantu anni mulaqin hisabiya. I was always dhanant here. Dhan can mean different things, right? Dhan can mean, assumption. It can mean like, I think, but it can also mean certainty. I knew, right? Inni dhanantu anni mulaqin hisabiya. I knew that I will most definitely meet my hisab, right? That I will be face to face in this. And he says mulaqin, right? That I'm going to for sure be in, I'm going to be in a meeting with my hisab, with my reckoning, right? Almost as if he's personifying the reckoning itself, right? That I'm going to be in a meeting with him, right? But it means, of course, that I know for sure that I'm going to come to this reckoning, right? And here it can be understood in a few different ways, right? It can be understood, number one, mulaqin hisabiya, right? That I knew that I would, experience this type of reckoning, right? And this is husnul dhan with Allah. That I knew that, yani, because of who Allah is, that I would reach this point, right? So there's a level of like optimism and celebration here that I had a husnul dhan with Allah. Right? I didn't deserve it, but because of Allah's mercy and, the small efforts that I put forth, I believed that I would meet this day in this way, right? And on the flip side, also, there's an element here of fear as well. إِنِّي ظَنَنْتُ أَنِّي مُلَاقٍ حِسَابِيَ, that I was also afraid of this moment because of my own actions, right? Su'ul dhan in his own actions. Husnul dhan with Allah, su'ul dhan with their own actions. And so, in both of these ways, right, both of these understandings, it would push a person to better and increase and beautify their deeds, right? Because if you know, and you have husnul dhan with Allah, that you can be a person who gets their book in their right hand, then you're going to do your best to do the actions that get your book to your right hand, right? It's like you do your best and let Allah take care of the rest, right? And then on the flip side as well, if you're afraid of the moment, right, because you know that you have mistakes and you know your shortcomings, right, then in this case, um, right, if you know that you're afraid of this moment as well, then it will push a person, like, I'm going to stand on the day of judgment and the books are going to be flying, and I'm either going to get it in my right hand or I'm going to get it in my left as it's going to come, right? Then this would also push a person to do whatever they can to, yani, do the actions that are going to avoid a disastrous outcome and reality for them. Okay. Any questions or anything up until this point? Okay, no. So then Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, right, as a result of that, right, because I was certain that I was always convinced that I will meet my reckoning, I will be in this position on this day. Now, yani, he got his book in his right hand. فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ رَاضِيَةٍ. Right, so this person now will be in فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ. He's going to be in a pleasing life, a pleasant life, right? Immersed in it. Khalas, that's it. Right? She is fully experiencing a pleasant and a pleasing life, right? And Radiya here is that, Radiyatan Mardiya. That he's going to be pleased and the life is going to be pleased and pleasing, right? You just imagine what that, what that looks like for a person, what that sounds like for a person, right? What that is for a person. فهو في عيشة راضية في جنة عالية, right? In lofty gardens, in a lofty garden, right? We know, that even in this world, right, the higher up something is, generally, the more luxurious it's going to be, right? In the hotels, they put, the penthouse suites and the, just the, like, this is the king suite. It's, where is it? It's usually going to be on the top, right? And even, subhanAllah, to have, like, imagine like these, the water and the gardens, raised up and high, lofty, right? So just the elevated, this person is being elevated, metaphorically speaking, and just in life as well, like actually physically speaking, right? So they're high up in this pleasing life. قطوفها دانية, right? It's qutuf. Qutuf is its pluckings. Qatf is to pluck something. Obviously, this is referring to the fruit, right? That's being plucked from the plants or the trees of Jannah. Daniya, it's low, right? So the Jannah is aliyah, but the qutuf is daniya, right? So you're going to be in these elevated, high gardens, right? But that doesn't mean that it's elevated, it's high, that it's difficult um, to reach any of the to reach any of the fruits. In fact, they're going to be near at hand, right? That they're going to come to the person, and when the person wants them, they're going to lower themselves to them, and they're going to, it's complete bliss and ease and relaxation. قطوفها دانية, and the contrast here is beautiful. جنة عالية بقطوفها دانية. كلوا واشربوا. It's going to be said to them, eat and drink. And here, this is a command of takreem, like of being honored. Why? Because there's no more commands in Jannah, right? Like when you see, like if we're told eat and drink, كلوا مما في الأرض حلالا طيبا, eat that which is halal. This is Allah giving us a command, right? That only eat that which is halal, right? But here it's a form of honor. Eat and drink, enjoy. You walk into an invitation at someone's house or a buffet restaurant and just eat and drink, right? Go ahead, enjoy yourselves, right? And here though, it's different. Allah says here, hani'an. Hani'an is like tayyiban, right? It's translated here as with all blessings, but it also means hani'an, it means pure and easy, right? Meaning what? If you, in this example, if you come to someone's house or you're at a restaurant or whatever it may be, and you're told eat and drink, right? And you're hungry, and so you just eat and drink. What can happen, right? You can get, it's possible that, let's look at all the possibilities, right? Number one, a lot of times what happens is you overeat. And when you overeat, maybe you're in pain and maybe you get sick and maybe, you're unable to move, right? You feel the waistline extending, right? Or you eat something and, you get food poisoning and you can never eat that thing again. And it becomes, a horrific experience. I remember getting food poisoning from eating an egg roll. And I couldn't touch egg rolls after that for years. Right? For years. I used to love these small little egg rolls. And I remember I threw up after eating it once and I couldn't for years and years until now. Just I still remember the taste of that particular egg roll because it's just there's an imprinted memory of just getting sick from it, right? So that could happen, right? Also, a person can run out of food. You have an invitation, there's not enough food for people, right? Person can get, again, you eat too much consistently and what happens? Diabetes and high cholesterol and cardiovascular disease and all of these things, right? So food, and we know this, that food and the way that people eat, right, can be one of the greatest sources of actually harm for them, of sickness, right? Here, Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, Kulu washrabu hani'an. Eat it hani'an, with blessings and with good, meaning none of this is going to happen, right? None of this is going to happen. SubhanAllah, actually just came, as I was preparing for this also, I came across a hadith in Sahih Muslim, where the Prophet ﷺ, he says, يَأْكُلُ أَهْلُ الْجَنَّةِ وَيَشْرَبُونَ, that the people of Jannah, they eat and they drink. وَلَا يَمَتْ وَلَا يَتَمَتْ وَلَا, it's wrong, I think. وَلَا يُمَتِّخَطُونَ, تمخيط, ولا يتغوطون ولا يبولون طعامهم ذلك جشاء كريح المسك يلهمون التسبيح والتكبير كما تلهمون النفس. Right, this is the same idea here, right? That the people of Jannah will eat and will drink. And that's another thing we didn't mention, right? When you eat and drink, what happens after it? You burp, you have to use the bathroom, you again, yani, akramakumullah, we won't go into details, but you know, there's that element of it too. So the hadith mentions that the people of Jannah will eat and they'll drink, and they will not have tamkhit, yani, anything coming from their nose, right? No running noses, no any boogers, none of that, right? No congestion. ولا يتغوطون, and they won't go akramakumullah, yani, to the bathroom. ولا يبولون طعامهم, number one or number two. That's gone, right? That's gone in the akhirah. The only thing, and there the what will come from the food is just that they'll burp. They'll burp. And even the burp, and we know the burp, subhanAllah, the burp in this world can be adab for people. Maybe not the person themselves, but the person next to the person. It can be a punishment. You smell someone else's burp, and especially in salah, I mean, may Allah protect us, right? It says, ذَلِكَ جَشَاءٌ كَرِيحِ الْمِسْكِ. Their burping, how it will come out, is like the smell of misk. That's the only like byproduct of their food and their drink, right? Again, yani, subhanAllah, كُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا هَنِيئًا هَنِيئًا بِمَا أَسْلَفْتُمْ فِي الْأَيَّامِ الْخَالِيَةِ. Eat and drink with blessings. Why? بِمَا أَسْلَفْتُمْ فِي الْأَيَّامِ الْخَالِيَةِ. As a reward for the deeds that you sent ahead during the days gone by, right? This is beautiful. Like, you invested in this, right? This is something that in the world you sent ahead, right? You had your akhirah bank account, and you were constantly and consistently depositing in that bank account. And that bank account now is directly being withdrawn and directly producing for you these rewards, right? To look at it like that, to look at it like whatever I do in this world of khair, I am investing and building for myself in the akhirah, right? And that's one of the beautiful ways also to motivate ourselves for doing good, right? Is that you recognize and you you attach to these actions a direct consequence in the akhirah, right? And it's so beautiful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does this for us in the Quran, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam does this for us in the Sunnah, right? Whoever prays these 12 rak'ahs, that, the Sunnah, the rawatib, that Allah will build for them a house in Jannah, right? You're literally building for yourself a house in Jannah with these actions. That, you say subhanallah, it builds for you a tree in Jannah, right? You say, these other types, these other adhkars that are mentioned, there's a treasure for you in Jannah, right? So you're either directly with these actions that have specific rewards, or just in general, right? That you're building for yourself a akhirah in Jannah, the rewards of the akhirah in Jannah. بما أسلفتم في الأيام الخالية, right? What you put forward, what you sent ahead, right? And that's, subhanAllah, again, for a person to recognize that You may not always see a direct reward of your actions in this world, but no ever doubt that what you're doing in this world for the akhirah is being protected and preserved and sent ahead. Excuse me. Alhamdulillah. Ayah number 18, does this also mean that day all human organs, including one's skin, will speak? How I use this bus in Ayah 18? It could be. It could also be referring to that. La takhfa minkum khaf. It's referring to that which is, there's nothing that's going to be hidden. And then part of that is that your own limbs and stuff are going to speak. So it could be. Allah no. Allahu a'lam. Okay. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla, He gives the other side. وَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِشِمَالِهِ. As for the one who receives his book in his left. And in another part of the Quran, in the 30th juz, وَرَاءَ ظَهْرِهِ, behind his back. Behind his back. And so some, they said, this is referring to two different levels, right? That the disbelievers even will be on levels, or those who will be punished will be on levels. Some will receive it in their left hand, some will receive it behind their back. Another explanation that's given is that the person does not want it to come to their left hand, and so they put their left hand behind their back, and they'll still get it in their left hand, even if it's behind their back, right? So either way, it's going to come to their left hand, right? And what are they going to say? فَيَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي لَمْ أُوتَ كِتَابِيَ. They will say, يَا لَيْتَنِي. Oh, yeah, يَا لَيْتَني here is a phrase or a word of regret. يَا لَيْت. يَا لَيْتَني. Oh, if only, right? لَمْ أُوتَ كِتَابِيَ. If only I was not given my book. I just wasn't even given a book. Forget even yet having it in the right hand. يعني لم أوت. I wish I never received my book. ولم أدري ما حسابية. And that I didn't know my reckoning. And I didn't know my reckoning. ولم أدري ما حسابية. And I had not known what my reckoning is going to be. Right? You see, subhanAllah, just the depth of the regret that's here. يا ليتها, again, if only, كانت القاضية. That it was, if only it had been my end. Yani death, if only death had been my end. Right? Like, people in this world are afraid of death. And they say, anything but death, running away from it. Here, it's the opposite. I wish, because of what they see in life, in that life, that they wish that they could go to death. They wish they could go to death. And again, the immense regret here. يا ليتها كانت القاضية ما أغنى عني مالية. That my wealth has not helped me at all. Right? And هلك عني سلطانية. My kingship has been lost to me. And these are the things, subhanAllah, that people think are going to get them out of any and all tight spots and difficulties and hard situations. My wealth and my power, my pull, my abilities, my wasita, my intercession, and my contacts and connects, right? But here he says, "Ma aghna anni maliya," that my wealth has not helped me, benefited me, right? All of that wealth is not benefiting me here. Halaka anni sultaniya, right? That my sultan, my authority, my power has been lost to me. It's not going to help me here, no matter how powerful. King of king. You could have a king, an authoritarian, a president, whatever, right? A CEO. Halaka anni sultaniya. Also, halaka anni sultaniya is, sultan can also be al-hujjah, or my my proof or my my argument, right? Any meaning, خلاص, I have nothing. ما أغنى عني مالي هلك عني سلطانية. So there's this recognition here, and this is something that, again, we take it and apply it in our in our reality, in our life, right? That what we think, is going to benefit us, if it's not used in the correct way, it will not your wealth, not your family, not your authority, it will not, right? On the day when the stakes are highest, it will not have any benefit if it wasn't used in the proper way. So then what is the command? خُذُوهُ فَغُلُّوهُ, right? That Allah will say about this person, to the angels, take this person. خُذُوهُ, grab him. فَغُلُّوهُ. غُلُّوهُ is to yoke him, to put a yoke, to imprison him, put a yoke around his neck. ثُمَّ الْجَحِيمَ صَلُّوهُ, and then cast him or enter him into al-jahim, to be burned therein. ثم في سلسلة ذرعها 70 ذراعا فاسلكوه, and then in these chains that the length is 70 cubits, فاسلكوه, fasten him, right? 70 cubits. I remember I had this question because 70 cubits is like 70 arms length, right? And we know that in Jahannam that the people are going to be much larger. So I remember asking, how can that be enough for a much larger creature or a much larger person on the day of judgment? And and the answer, subhanAllah, was, I looked in a tafsir book and they said that it's 70 cubits of the angels, right? 70 angelic cubits, much larger. But the point is, even that, the question is obviously faulty, because and the akhirah is not going to be like this world, right? It's not going to be. These things are mentioned not for us to ask, okay, how much and what is that exactly like? No, the things of the akhirah are from the unseen, and so the reality of them is going to be different, of course, right? But the point is here, you don't need to know what it's like or how it's like to know that this is something very scary, right? That the person is going to be grabbed and placed in Jahannam this way and tied up and then chained, right? And subhanAllah, even they one of our teachers mentioned that the person, they chain themselves with the chains of this world, right? Whether it's the chains of money or the chains of prestige or power or desires, right? And so that they will be chained on the day of judgment, right? Al-jaza'u min jins al-amal. That punishment fits the crime. So they did this to themselves in this world, and so this is what they will get in the akhirah. That's just a point that was mentioned, right? What caused this person to be in this situation or in this position? Allah mentions two main things here, He mentions two main things. He says, number one, إِنَّهُ كَانَ لَا يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ الْعَظِيمِ. Number one, at the highest level, right? So when it comes to belief, right? Aqidah, theology, worldview, understanding, right? This person didn't believe, didn't have iman in Allah. Okay. Sorry about that. Bismillah. We'll take these last three ayahs, inshallah. So, number one is a refusal or a rejection in the belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? They didn't accept Allah in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presents and teaches about himself to us. Right? So, number one problem is in belief. They didn't say La ilaha illallah. They didn't believe and accept La ilaha illallah. Right? So there was an issue in belief. And then there was an issue also in action. And subhanAllah, look at what the action that's emphasized here. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. And they did not encourage the feeding of the poor. And they did not encourage the feeding of the poor. Right? And this shows us, subhanAllah, the centrality of how we interact with others when it comes to our deen, right? The centrality of how we deal with others when it comes to our deen. One of the things that they're mentioning, of that Allah is mentioning, what led them to this destruction and this punishment and the severity of it is not just a lack of belief in Allah, but a lack of care and concern and, help with the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these two things are connected. Meaning, one of the manifestations of belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is meaning one of the manifestations of the taqwa of Allah is how one deals with the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? How one deals with the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So taqwa is not just limited, okay, this person believed in Allah. Right? I believe in Allah and His names and His attributes and all of these things. That needs to come with a proof and a follow-up and a lifestyle, right? And that lifestyle is here, right? This is one of the examples of that. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. This person didn't even encourage the feeding of the poor. Allah doesn't say here, this person didn't feed the poor. Obviously, that would be, if a person is able to feed the poor, they should feed the poor. But here, it's showing even on a baseline level. Let's say a person says, you know what, I don't have anything to help feed the poor with. I don't have anything, to to give the poor, right? At the very least, you can encourage. And this is what wala yahuddu. This person didn't even encourage the feeding of the poor. And so this removes any excuse, like, or even any valid justification that a person says, I'm unable to feed the poor. Okay. What about, are you able to encourage others and help others and facilitate for others? Yes. So that requires a word. That doesn't require even any type of wealth, right? إنه كان لا يؤمن بالله العظيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين, right? So it's showing us the importance and the value of the rights of people and taking care of the rights of people. There's a hadith, a beautiful hadith, that someone mentioned to the Prophet ﷺ a scene that they had seen from some of the Muslims. There's some of the Muslims who were in Al-Habasha. They were in Abyssinia under the Najashi. And so when they came to the Prophet ﷺ, one of them told the Prophet ﷺ of this, of something that they had seen, which is that there was a young man, for whatever reason, I didn't come across the why, but there was a woman who was carrying something on her back, right? And this man, he kind of, like, maybe as a joke, or whatever it was the reason, he like pushed her or tripped her, and it caused her to fall down, right? And so this woman, she got up and she said, you will know on the day of judgment, what your jaza, what your uh, punishment, or what the consequence will be, right? So she was able to kind of, like, stand up and defend herself, and basically, speak up for her rights. And the Prophet ﷺ, he commented on this, and he said, "Sadaqat." She was truthful, right? لا قدست أمة لا يأخذ الضعيف فيها حقه غير متعتع. He says that Allah will not sanctify a people who amongst them, they're weak or vulnerable, are not able to take their rights with without a level of difficulty or fear or anxiety, right? And meaning the sign of a society that is divinely aided, at least in some aspects, is that people have rights, right? Whether it's the the poor or the weak or the woman or the vulnerable, that they have rights and they're able to claim, and they're able to speak for their rights, and gain their rights without fear of reprisal, without fear of harm, without fear that they're going to be put down or hurt or abused for speaking for their rights, right? And so, subhanAllah, there's such a heavy emphasis of this in our deen, the importance of encouraging and facilitating and speaking out for the vulnerable and for the weak and for the needy and for the poor, right? And a lack of doing that can be one of the reasons that a person is punished in the akhirah, right? So here you have in these two ayat the haqq of Allah and the haqq of people, right? And maybe this is an indicator of all of those that go under these as well, right? Because if a person is not on a basic level believing in Allah, then they haven't given Allah His right, right? As the one who is only deserving of belief and you know basically full submission and full um, obedience, right? And the rights of people. If a person has forgotten and is ignored and turned away even the yani the encouragement of feeding the poor, then there is a major problem that's there. There is a major problem that's there, right? We didn't read the ayah number 35, and I think we'll keep, inshallah, 35 to the end of the surah, to 52. We'll keep it for next week, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. If anyone has any questions or anything that they'd like to um, add or contribute, we can leave the remaining time for that. Otherwise, we'll stop there at 34 and continue from 35 from tomorrow, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Or sorry, next week. Okay. No questions, nothing. It's a lower turnout today. I'm not sure why. But inshallah, everyone is doing well. Okay. I think then maybe we will close with that. بإذن الله. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. We'll see you all next week.